So, hey guys, welcome. My name is Loopers. Today I'm doing a masterclass and I'm explaining my latest release, I'm Out, that has been released on Stmpd Rcrds. First of all, I'm gonna deconstruct the intro, then we're gonna do the build-up, and finally we're gonna go to the drop and see how it's built. I usually always start my songs with the intro, and I always have an extended mix and like a Spotify mix for tracks, because for DJs you need another mix for clubs, and for Spotify as a listener you want the song to not have a very long intro so it stays interesting for the listener. Today I'm going to show you the Spotify mix and not the extended mix of the track, but first of all let's hear the track. So, first of all, when I always make... Thank you. Before I start making any track, I am the producer that always puts my master chain on. So before I start explaining the track, I want to show my master chain. For my master chain. So first of all, I start off with the EQ. I use FabFilter Pro Q2, and I can recommend everyone to use this one as well, because in my opinion it's the best EQ out there. So what I do on my master, I will open a new one to show. So here you have the channel mode. It's on left right normally, but I changed this to mid side. And what does this mean? This separates your mono from your stereo in your track. So, why do I do this? Because in my mix, I want certain frequencies and to just be a mono, and certain frequencies I want in stereo. I do this because it makes the mix more clean and it makes it more tight on the master chain. So how do I do it? So first of all, you click on the mid side, and then you double click. And then here you have the scissor function that separates the mono from the stereo. So I click this one, and then you have like a stereo and a mono here. So what I do, these frequencies I'm using right now are not frequencies you should definitely use. I'm only showing you a range of frequencies you could use. So my mono, let's say for example, I cut on 30 and I do a low cut, a little less. And then let's say the stereo for indication on 120, also a low cut. So like I said, you don't need exactly to copy the 30 or the 120 hertz frequency. This is just the indication. Play for yourself with it and see what just sounds nice for you. So this is for the master and the EQ. Then I use the glue. That's a compressor. It's a very good compressor. And what I do, I'm going to put this all down. So this is how the glue looks like when you open it. So what I do is I put the ratio from 4 to 2, because I don't want it to be that heavy. And I have a very fast attack. And my release, I change from 0.1 to 0.2. I put the threshold on -9, and I put the makeup on +9.1 in this case. This also is not a value you should every time use. I would say start off with like -7, +7 for your makeup, and if you want to compress it more, just push the threshold up and push the makeup up as well. After the glue, I use the ozone for one certain option it gives, and that's the imager. And what I do in the imager, what I use it for is to put my stereo elements in my track even a little bit more wider. But what I want to do is to keep the mono frequencies and the low frequencies, I want to keep those in mono. So in case of this track, my root key is the E, and the third octave of the E, the frequency is 164 hertz. So what I do is that I make sure that this first band is on 164. And so that's band 1. This part is band 2. This part is band 3. And this one is band 4. My first band, I want no stereo, so I put this thing on 0, and I don't use it. The other bands, you can play with those things here. You can put these a little bit wider, or this one a little bit wider. It's just also taste. Here I choose to use a bandwidth of mostly between 15 and 20. In this case, it's 17.7, 12.7, and 15.2. Once again, these values, you can play around with it, but make sure your first band is on 0 because you want your bass in mono. After that, I only use a limiter, and that's the brick wall limiter of a T-Rex. I just keep the style on clean. The input is on 0, and the output is on 0 as well. I don't boost anything here on my limiter at the end. I just want something to keep my sound not higher than 0 dB. So that was for the master chain. I want to have a quick moment right now, not for too many questions, but has someone a question about the master chain before we proceed to the rest of the track? Yes.
For you.
So do you always start your tracks with the master channel?
Always.
Always. You don't do it after?
I always put it on, and at the end, when I finish the track, I might boost a little bit with the EQ on my master, or just change the values that I just showed a little bit to taste. But I always put it on first, because for me, it makes the whole process of making a track better, because at one certain point, I just want to hear the loudness, and I want to feel it, and if I do it afterwards, I never get that point in my production where I'm like, okay, this sounds cool, I need to do this in order to make the track. It works for me, but I can understand that for other people, it works the other way,
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
But also, is it then for you that you don't send it to a mastering specialist afterwards? You're going to do the final mastering yourself?
I've tried it once to use a mastering service, but I don't like it, to be honest. I just want to do everything myself. I think mixing in general is also a taste thing. There is no good way to do a mix. There is no one rule you should follow to have a thing. It's all taste, and that's the beauty of music. There are no rules. Just do it. Right. And it's when you think it sounds good, believe in it, And when someone else says, no, you cannot limit every channel, just do it and see how it works for you. There are multiple ways to roam, guys. So that's for the master. Any other questions about the master before we proceed? Nope? Cool. Okay, so for the intro. In this track, I'm going to mute the stems here. I mostly start with a break beat or I just like break beats a lot. And most intros I start, for the Spotify mix, I start with a break beat kind of thing. And then I'm always in search for the right vocal. So as you know, I also made a track, I'm Heavy, that says something about me. And in the track, I'm Odd, I was looking for a vocal that says something about me. Because at the end, your music is a reflection of who you are and your character. So always try to find elements that can translate who you are into music. So I'm also a little bit odd. So to start with the break bit. So that's the breakbeat. It's actually a loop, but I chopped it up a little bit because I want variations. I didn't want the loop to repeat itself and have some variations. And the processing I will show now, I didn't do that much. I think I removed a little bit of the low frequencies, boosted in the mid and the highs. This is without the EQ. With the EQ, as you can hear, the mids and the highs are a little bit boosted. And here I use the Waves L2 limiter to control my volume, because I don't want it to be louder than -6.5 in this case. As you can see, that's your outer ceiling, so your output. So we have the breakbeat now, and then I went searching for the right vocal. So in this case, so this is the original vocal. This is from a pack. I bought just a pack with rap vocals in it, and just go through the vocals and see what sounds interesting, what words can relate to you, you know? So in this case, it's...
You know who it is, you know I'm odd, you know what it is.
This was the original sample. I actually didn't even change that much to this sample. And how I combined it with the breakbeat, it turns out to this.
You know who it is, you know I'm hard, you know what it is. You know who it is, you know I'm hard, you know what it is. You know who it is, you know I'm hard, you know what it is. You know who it is, you know I'm hard, you know what it is.
So, now we have two elements. We have the breakbeat and we have the vocal. And then mostly I'll go searching for the right bass line. In this case, I used Serum. And here I did like a triplet thing that makes the bass a little bit unique, because the track is actually not in triplet, but these notes go in triplet, so it gives like a kind of weird flow to it, what I like. So right now I will show you the processing of this bass, and then after this I will play together the vocal, the bass, and the breakbeat together. Oh, no processing. Just a sidechain. Let's see. So that's the Reese, the vocal, and the breakbeat. But I was missing some synth aspect in the mid frequencies, so I was searching for a sound that can fill up that. And that's how I came up with the top lead for the intro. That sounds like this. And as you can see, it kind of also has the triplet notes here in it, what makes the melody kind of unique in a way, because it plays straight notes but also triplets. And together it sounds like this. So, now we have the top lead, the bass, the breakbeat, and the vocal. So at this point, I already had the feeling, okay, this sounds cool, this is okay, but I need some fillers, some things to play at the background. And that's where we get like these sounds from, like this. Nothing really special, but like small elements that add some detail to your track. And I think at the end, a good song has all these small elements that play in the background or just like in some phases of the track. And maybe as a listener, you don't notice it at once, but your underconscious knows that, oh, this sounds like deeper, that has more dimensions to it. So always try to add details, add things to the background that fill up your whole main concept, you know? So that's actually for the intro. This is all the elements I use. So all together, we have this. Okay, then as you notice, the build-up starts, and the build-up has this very cool guitar sound in it. And what I did here, actually, I played this, I don't know if I have the layer here, but I made this melody. And as you can hear, this guitar sound has a very organic, real feel to it, and it's really recorded. I just made the melody, and a very good friend of mine that's sitting here, actually, he's a very good guitar player, and he played it in for me. So in my tracks, I'm always looking for a way to combine digital aspects with organic aspects, and as far I cannot play any guitar, I get the help from my friends in that way. But that's nothing wrong with it in my way, and I think if you have an idea for a cool melody and you cannot play the guitar yourself, you can use plugins like Contact to recreate a very organic sound. But if you have someone who can play it in for you, why not? Just do it. So for the build-up, the build-up actually consists of this guitar element, the vocal that keeps looped here. Let's look at the processing of the guitar melody. So I will first play the guitar melody without the chain, and then I'm gonna explain this chain. Let me turn these off here, so we can purely listen to the guitar. So this is the guitar without the processing I did. Let's have a listen. So I started off with an equalizer. I just removed some low frequencies and I boosted a little bit the highs and the mids. Then I used some Fab Filter Saturn. This is saturation, and how can I explain saturation? I think saturation, in my belief, it's a kind of mild form of distortion. It just adds some extra edge to it in the mid or high frequencies. It really depends on how you use the saturation. But the saturator gives this effect. So as you can see, the sound sounds louder in the mid and the high sections, and more loud in general as well. And after that, I use the reverb. I use all the reverb I use is the Arts Acoustic. I started off with this reverb. There's no specific reason, but I really like the sound of this reverb. But if you want to have a good reverb, I can also recommend Valhalla Room. It doesn't use that much CPU as well, and the sound is very nice. So after the EQ, the saturation, and the reverb, I use the limiter. And here, I made sure the sound doesn't go higher than minus 10.3. So what it does here you can decide the threshold, how much you want to limit. The more you push this down, the more the sound gets limited, but you don't want too much, otherwise the sound dies in a way, it goes over the top. So you want to keep your dynamics, but you also want the sound to be loud in a way. So play around with the threshold, and with the outer ceiling you can decide what the maximum volume, the dB of the sound is going to be. I can show you how it sounds if I push it all the way down, so you can hear how the sound gets affected and it loses. I think it's a little bit hard to hear from the room, but that is for the guitar lead processing. So yeah. So right now we discussed the intro, we had the build-up, and now we're going to go to the drop section. So let's take another listen to the drop first. So what you guys might notice is that I use a lot of A-B structures in my drops. So you first have the melody, this part. So that's A. And this is the B part. And I see it as like a question-answer thing. So the first part is the question, and the B part is the answer to the question. And for drops, I start off with the A part, and then I just try out different B parts and see which loop actually, which two ABs work the best together. And this part takes a lot of time, to be honest, because in my opinion, it's pretty hard to make something that flows into each other, but also goes back in a good vibe to the first melody. But yeah, for me this is like exciting because I don't use the same melody all over in the drop, and you always have this contrast from A to B, so you keep the attention of the listener in a way. So let's first deconstruct the A part, and then we go to the B part. For the A part, let's turn all the synths off, the claps, and let's just start with the fundamentals, the kick drum. So this is the kick I used, and as you can hear, it doesn't have like a click on it, so no top kick. It's only body. And this one, as you can see, is like, I put a little bit lower in my mix. I normally like put my kick on like -5 dB. But sometimes I push it up to -3 during the track, or like I lower it even to -6. It's also, these values are not fixed values. You can play around with it. But for me, to start off, I always start with -5 for my kick, and the rest always plays lower than the kick because my kick is the loudest element in my track. So here we have the kick drum, and then you have the click. So this is the click. There's actually a click from a track that I made like years ago, Seoul, like 4 years ago, but I really like the sound of the click. And that's why I always also recommend, when you make a track and you have like a specific cool sample in it that you really like, just save these things, because you never know how you're going to use it later. And some elements of some tracks I use already for years. So that also adds to developing your own sound, you know? So the body of the kick and the punch together sounds like this. Without punch, with the punch. So then let's go to also for the punch also, let's go to the chain. So as you can see, the punch definitely plays lower volume than my body. I don't want my punch to be as loud as my body, because if your punch is too loud, it takes away the power of the kick underneath it. So I try to put my punch lower than my real kick, and that sounds very well. So, next up, claps. There's a clap I use a lot. It's from the Roland 808 pack. And I just layered it with this clap that gives a little bit of tail to it. So that's for the drums, in a way. I have some filler drums, but I'll come to that later. So, next up. So as you guys already know, also in the track Game Over, in the track I'm Heavy, and this track, I have a kind of signature low bass that I really like using in my tracks. And how I make my drops, I have these kicks and the claps ready, and then I'm searching for the right bass groove. So in this case, that is this bass. And as you might hear, there's like a slight difference in the sound of the bass between the A and the B section. The B section has this small notch thing sound on it that just gives a little bit more body to the bass. So let's dive in deeper into the synth and the bass that I used here. This is a serum sound as well. And a lot of you guys might be producers that make synths and basses from scratch, from init. I really don't like that. It's not my thing. I just like take presets that I like, and I just tweak them in a way and make them unrecognizable. And that's also an approach. I mean, like I said, there's no one way to do things. The thing you should watch out, though, with using presets is that it doesn't sound as how the preset actually sounds. So if you have a cool preset and sound, just try to tweak it that much that it's unrecognizable anymore, and it's a unique sound, you know? So for this sound, I want to go to the processing of it. So without my chain, it will sound like this. We have 10 minutes left, so I need to hurry a little bit, but we're almost there, because after the A part, I will deconstruct the B part, and then we're kind of done, and you can ask the questions. So, bass. What did I do here? I didn't cut a lot of my low frequencies here, because I have not another bass playing here, actually, so I wanted to keep the power of this bass, so I just cut it a little bit, and I boosted, I think, my root key also a little bit. So let's just listen with the first EQ and with the other mixer chains off. So the next thing, that's my magic, to be honest. That's the wow filter. Really love this, really love this plugin. I use it a lot on basses only, because if I use it in this way, I use it on synths or higher elements, it just doesn't work. It's very good for lower sounding elements. So I will just reopen this one and show you exactly my approach to wow filter. So here we go. Oh, so this is how it opens up normally, and then you click on vowel mode, and it jumps into vowel mode. And vowel mode, basically, a vowel is like A, E, O, U, E. Those are vowels. And what this thing does, I think it boosts these vowels and these harmonies, and it just adds like a tube distortion kind of effect. Because the way I use it, normally it's on vowel mode, but I also put it here on band reject. And this plugin actually was used back in the days for the first dubstep sounds, where people automated this button, and then you could like make these dubstep growls. But I use it in a different way. I just put it on vowel mode and band reject, and then I take the resonance a little bit back and give it a little bit of overdrive. And then I just start playing around with these vowels combinations. So you have a vowel A and you have a vowel B. So after some tweaking, I found out that one of my favorite combination is the I going to this crazy O here. Yeah, this one. I don't know how you call it. O with 2 dots on it. It's a Jack U O or something. I don't know. Something so yeah, so with the wow filter on, it sounds like this. So what the wow filter also does, what you don't want, it adds new frequencies to your sound. And I just cut it a little bit of the lows. So I think it added too much low, so I cut it a little bit more again, and then I started boosting here, ducking a little bit of the highs, and boosting in this range. What resulted in this. So, because I also had the top lead playing in this drop, I didn't want all the high elements of this bass sound, and I really wanted to focus on the lower elements. And then what I use is a limiter. I actually use the Waves L2 on almost every separate channel in my mix. Some people find me crazy for it, but I like it, so it works for me. What I did here is push the threshold a little bit down and define my outer ceiling on -6. And just a simple sidechain plugin kickstart. That's the processing for the bass. So because I don't have much time left, I will go a little bit faster through the process right now. So that's for the bass. And for the top lead, actually, guys, it's one layer. It's just from the Crane pack, actually. And the melody I was talking about earlier that my friend played, I just used that melody again in a drop, but with a total different sound, which gives the contrast that I was looking for. So first you have the acoustic guitar, and you don't expect something like this to come afterwards, and that's kind of the shock factor to the track, I think. So I will play this sound. So for the processing of this one, there's some fab filter. This here, what you see right now, is it's called notch EQ. And what you do is you put these bands all the way up, actually, and then you start searching for the annoying frequency range. So this is a pretty high sound. So it's pretty common that it has frequencies that bother your ear. And you just go through them, and you find that exact frequency, and then you just duck it down. So let's say, super annoying, so I ducked this down. And that's what I did, but watch out doing this, because when I started doing this, I just ducked too much frequencies, and then it loses all the power of the synth. So you don't want to remove all the annoying frequencies, just choose a few, and then see if the sound is good enough at that point, and don't duck everything, because you will kill the sound. So after that, equalizer again, boosted a little bit more of these frequencies. This is BX Stereo Maker. It's a stereo plugin that I use from Brainworks. I just did a little bit of stereo expansion here. Then I use the reverb, limiting, and these are my sidechains afterwards. So that's for the A part of the drop. Then we go, how much time do we have left?
A little less than 5 minutes.
Okay, I will do this one in 1 minute, guys.
Okay, cool.
So let's see. So for the B part, this is the synth. it's a Serum sound, and a very cool function in Serum that I use is the sync function on synths, and it sounds like this. And with this, you can, so let's say I start a drop, and I first use this sound, then in the second 16 bars, I can put this one up, and then the synth plays a harmony instead of the original sound, so you can keep building tension in a track. So, yeah, might a little bit go into tweaking of this one. So, once again, just equalizing, my wow filter, another equalizer, just some reverb and some limiting. And that's it for the drop. I want to finish it by here and give you guys some time to ask some questions.
Okay, cool. If you got a question. Perfect. Yes, first of all, thank you so much for having a quick look inside of your kitchen. So if you have a question for Lupus, can you please raise your hands up and you will get a microphone. Anyone in the back, of course?
I saw you let your sub bass go through in the entire build-up, and I was wondering, why don't you cut it off just before the drop?
So the thing, you see it playing there, but on my master I have a filter that cuts the low frequencies during the build-up. So all the low frequencies get cutted, so eventually you don't have the full bass playing with all the full ranges there. Because that's the thing also, you need to put a filter on your master towards the drop to take out the low frequencies and bring them all back.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, okay, please keep it quiet. We can't hear Loopers. Thank you.
All right, thanks, man.
No worries, sure. Anyone else?
How much time did you use on the project?
Ooh, I can see that. 23 hours? Yeah.
You expected that? Or more or less?
I think, to be honest, on the average, I spent 40 hours on a project, but this one was such a simplistic thing, because as you can see, there are not that many elements actually in this track. It's like a bass and a melody and a guitar thing, and that's it. So that's the power of less is more, I think.
One more question here. Yes.
Do you sidechain your bass and your synths with the same waveform?
Yeah, for everything I use the same sidechain. I don't have per se a reason to it, but it just sounds tighter in my opinion.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We are running out of time, so we're going to close this session up. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please give it up one more time for Lupus?